Okay, welcome back for round 2 with Martyn. These stories have already started blowing my mind, but we're about to go even deeper and hear some more stories. Martyn, the aim of this session, I want to hear the highs, I want to hear the lows, I want to hear the dangerous times, all these mission trips and things that you've done. So let's start with a high. Let's start positive, shall we? Can you tell us some of your favourite stories? I mean, I wondered if I could maybe get you to tell one of mine about this refugee that had a dream where God told him what was going to happen.
Okay.
I wonder if you could share that to start with, but then just share like any of your highlighting meeting stories, miracles.
Okay. Well, Liam's referring to a refugee from the Syrian war who, with his family, about 20 of his family, came out of Syria, came through Turkey and was going to be people smuggled on a boat over to Greece. So he was on his way to Western Europe. And the night before he was about to embark on this boat, because it was going at night, he had a dream. And in the dream, he was drowning, and a man in white, a bright light, came walking to him in the dream and lifted him up and put him on dry ground and said, I'm something like, I'm your savior and you are to stay here, don't go on the boat. So he didn't go on the boat. They paid all their money to go on this boat. They didn't have anything left. So it was a big deal decision, but they decided not to go. And afterwards they discovered that the boat sank and a number of people were drowned, but they were saved, so
wow.
Anyway, the long and short of it was he got saved as a result of this dream.
And then his family got saved.
And his family got saved.
And now he's doing incredible things in ministry.
And a few hundred people got saved, refugees. And some of them moved on to Europe, others have moved to different places, but he felt that he should stay in Istanbul as the Lord told him, in the dream. And so when I met him, they had about 160 odd people in 4 groups in a kind of church in Istanbul. Just an amazing work of God.
Amazing.
So our charity Cry supports that work. They're all poor, of course. They've got nothing. But God's raised them up and people are getting saved. And it's just an amazing work of God in Istanbul there. So,
I love that, because you just think, you see these news things, you see, people dying, and you think, where is God? And really, he is in the middle of it, working in people's lives and transforming people. And I think it's an incredible
saving people is just, and that kind of story could be told many times over.
You have a lot of those stories, especially the dream of the man in white. That seems to be a common theme throughout, especially that Eastern European. Can you tell us one of your favourite trips, just one that you really enjoyed, or over your many years of travelling?
I started going to Eastern Europe while it was still communist times, before the wall came down.
Yeah.
And so I went all around Eastern Europe. In fact, I never wanted to go to Eastern Europe at all, because obviously it's dangerous.
Quite dangerous,
So, and when the wall was there in Berlin, people, because it separated families, people used to go there on both sides of the wall and wave to their relatives on the other side.
Wow.
Binoculars and all that kind of stuff. Very emotional.
Yeah.
And you could even climb up on little platforms to look over. So I went there a couple of times to experience the emotion of it. And I'm on one of these platforms one day, and like in Germany right at the beginning, I heard God speak to me and say, look over this wall, and I'm going to take you through all these countries all the way to Moscow.
Wow.
And so that was that. So I thought, well, that's never going to happen, because I'm certainly not going to go there.
Yeah, sure.
It's too dangerous. And within like 2 weeks, I get invited to go to an underground meeting of charismatic leaders in the Lutheran church
Wow.
in East Germany.
Wow.
And so another German guy who'd heard me speak, he said, "Why don't you come with me?" I thought, oh no, God's spoken to me and now this guy's inviting me. So about a month later, we're going through Checkpoint Charlie.
Wow.
You
Come
must
on.
have heard of Checkpoint Charlie. And so, I mean, that was frightening. But we got through okay and went down there, and that was I just went to not minister or anything, just to go with this guy and meet some people. And they said to me, "Just bring some greetings from England." And I just said hello from England, and the Holy Spirit fell on the place.
Oh, really? Come on. Wow.
It was incredible. And
Hi. And wow.
out of that meeting,
Yeah.
and about 40 new churches started. And I've visited many of them, both in communist times and after, and even now I'm friends with a number of them. And but I didn't know what I was doing or anything. And but God clearly opened the door into. So that was really encouraging.
Do you feel when you're doing these? Do you feel like really underqualified? Do you feel
totally? I'm thinking I have no idea what I'm doing.
Sure.
I got no. In those days, and I really didn't know. I mean, now I kind of understand.
You have some more idea,
bit,
yeah.
But then I was literally just following where God seemed to open doors, and I had no kind of strategy and plan to start new churches or anything. But like one of the guys, I prophesied over him, and it was so specific, and there were 4 of them from the same place. I didn't know this, but I got 4 people just to come out and stand together.
And they happened to be...
And they all came from the same place. And they started a church, which I've been to several times. And even the last time I went, about 5 years ago, they said, "This is what you prophesied." And he said, we followed this all the way through the whole life of the church. And so that kind of thing would happen. But anyway, one of the great things. This is how it, when I went to East Germany several times, and in '88 maybe, I was in Dresden, one of the East German cities. And it's not far from the Moravian, where the Moravians.
Oh, okay,
they had a whole missionary movement a couple of 100 years ago. And they used to sell themselves into slavery and go down to the quayside in Dresden, get on a boat, become slaves and be taken all around the world, up the River Elbe, eventually out at Rotterdam, and then from there around the world.
As missionaries.
As missionaries.
That is
but
incredible.
They couldn't afford to go, but they became kind of
slaves. Yes, they could.
And some of them, I'd been reading about this, and some of them went to Greenland.
Wow.
And I thought, this is really crazy. So I'm standing on the quayside of the River Elbe, where they used to get on the boat, and families would wave goodbye and they'd never see them. I mean, the stories are
That's
incredible.
Another level, isn't it?
And it's just amazing. So, and I'm standing there, and I just heard God say in my heart again, "You're going to go there one day."
To Greenland.
To Greenland.
Yes. Is anyone else there? That's
and it was amazing, but it lived in my heart all those years. And God said to me, "When you go, it's going to be my time for Greenland." And I prayed about it's on and off for years, for almost 30 years. And then one day God said to me, "Now's the time to go to Greenland." This is just a few years ago now.
Yeah, it hasn't been long.
And I thought, how on earth do you get to Greenland? I have no idea. Know no one in Greenland. Don't know anything what to do. And literally the next day,
of course,
another missionary rang me up.
I assumed that would happen. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know this guy.
There's a theme in your life, Martyn. This is.
But I'd shared with in one prayer meeting, I'd shared with some leaders I'd been praying for Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the people in this prayer meeting went and told his missionary friend
Okay.
who'd been to Greenland.
Oh, right. Wow.
And this was the guy that rang me up. So anyway, he said, I can introduce you to someone. So I went to Greenland anyway. Greenland's one of my favourite places. It was phenomenal. It was just amazing. And I could speak all day about Greenland.
There are some cool stories from Greenland.
God is at work in Greenland. You've met some of the Greenland
I have,
guys.
yes. Apalek has become a friend, yeah.
Apalek and Nuke and Brian.
And because I try and tell the stories, but maybe you can clear me up. There was the biggest criminal on the island and the police detective. They became Christians and led together, right?
That's right. Brian, who heads up the work in Greenland, when the first conference he came to, he brought this other guy, big Eskimo Inuit kind of guy, that big. And he said, me policeman, him criminal, now brothers. He goes, it brought the house down. It was
mad. It's just incredible.
Fantastic. So, and
of course there is the famous story, which we've heard from Greenland, where the man got attacked by a polar bear and his dog saved his life.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Oh, well, that's just one of the miracles up there. But a guy, his most precious possession is his dog.
Yes.
I mean, this is really in the far north.
Yeah.
And he's a pastor, and he goes out hunting one day, and suddenly there's a polar bear there, and his dog jumps up, and to protect him, the polar bear fights him, but he managed to shoot the polar bear.
Okay.
Sorry for all animal rights people.
Different world in Greenland. Yeah, let's be real.
Environment up there, and it saved his life. And his dog was half dead, so he carried him back and laid him out. His eye had come out, and he took him to the shaman, the witch doctor, if you like, the spirit man, because he's like the only vet or only one that deals
with animals.
He said, "Can you patch my dog up?" And he said, "He's dying. Forget it."
Yeah.
But he said, "Please just do what you can." So he cut his eye out and sewed his eye up and his face, and he left him outside to die outside in the snow. And he goes out in the morning, and his dog's jumping around and full of life, and jumps into his arms, and he's looking into his face and all that, and he sees that he's got a brand new eye in his socket. Brand new eye.
I mean, I've never heard of anything like that in my life.
Well, I'm cynical about it.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, is this the kind of story they tell up here, kind of thing. And they all said, no, show him the pictures. So he's got all this on, all pictures, all, and it was a genuine miracle of God.
Wow.
And of course, loads of people got saved and all that kind of stuff. And God is at work in Greenland. The first time I preached there, they said, we're going to, have a gathering so people can meet this man from England, because this was not the
not many
capital.
people go.
This was like a place called Manitsoc in the middle of nowhere. And so about 150 people, they never have meetings that size. And about 20 people responded to the gospel.
Wow.
And it was like, last year they baptized 40 people.
Wow.
And there's just, it's like God said, the timing of God for Greenland.
Yeah.
God's at work in Greenland. It's amazing. Now, I know other people go, and it's not about me, it's about what God's doing.
Oh,
and you kind of get caught up in something that God's doing, so. But Brian's a really good friend of mine now. He said, I don't know what it is about you, but you understand Greenland people. He said, you're like a Greenland person when you're here. He said, I don't know how you do it. He said, you're one of us, your brother, you're part of the family.
Amazing.
It's it is beautiful.
Wow, man.
So God's at work in Greenland. But one of my favourite places, or where I really felt a tipping point
Yeah.
in my kind of journey into ministry, if you like,
Yeah.
was in Kyrgyzstan.
Wow. Okay. Go on.
And I haven't got time to describe, but that was quite a scary place. I flew to Kazakhstan, and then I was due to catch another plane, and I was due to meet someone in Kazakhstan, but the flight got cancelled,
Okay.
and he went on another flight. And there was a bloke there in the airport saying, "I'm to drive you over the mountains to Kyrgyzstan."
Wow.
So I thought, can I trust this guy?
Yeah.
Fear. What am I going to do? But in the end, I just decided to go with him. So we drove for about 8 hours, literally.
Oh.
Came to a place called Karakol, which means the ends of the earth.
Wow.
And it was like,
Yeah, it felt like that.
And the mountains were there, the Tian Shan Mountains, beautiful place. And a missionary had invited us there to do some meetings. So my mate was there, so praise God I wasn't on my own there. But so we did some meetings, and then the KGB, it was still like in the aftermath of Soviet times, they came in to break up the meeting. Everyone was being kicked around and beaten up, and they came up to me, and I was really scared, but I said, "Let me see your identification." I said, "Here's got one of the guys with a camera."
Yeah.
They took the camera and threw it away. I said, anyway, in the end, they backed off and the meeting finished, but at least they didn't take me into custody, and they were casting other people off. But we were there about 3 or 4 days, and there were so many healings and people getting saved. They were just coming to the meetings and people were getting saved. And one night the meeting finished in silence, and we could hear like the sound of singing, and it was just there. And we went outside because we were trying to find out what was.
Wow.
And in the mountains, it was full of light, and it was like the angels were singing. That's the one time I can say I've seen
angels.
The angel choirs of God. Incredible. And
wow.
And I realised then, that was in 95, maybe 96, and I realised then that probably in a more kind of serious way that God was calling us to the nations. And out of that, a load of churches started in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan.
All those places we never really think
of. Contacting us, saying, people were saying we got saved and healed.
Yeah.
All that, and I realised then. So that was one of the, and that was when on the way back, I was in this. We were going back on this little plane, and this there was an American missionary jumped on the plane, and we were all like on each other's laps, and there were goats and crates of chicken.
Sure, wow.
It was like the mountains, and we were going, and and we hardly got off the ground, and this American missionary guy wasn't at the meetings, he was doing something else. He said, "Do you have any unfulfilled prophecies over your life?" Kind of a bit of a lame joke,
to make sure you don't crash. I see.
And he was really worried. I said, "Yeah, I got one unfulfilled prophecy." He said, "What's that?" I said, "I'll be the sole survivor of a plane crash."
Nice.
But so that kind of thing happened. So
man, that's amazing.
And many times when police have broken up meetings, been put in little rooms and left for a bit to soften me up or whatever, but nothing. People have gone through far worse than I've ever gone through. So I don't want to exaggerate, my boldness. I'm very scared and timid, actually. But
no, man, thank you for those stories. I love chatting with you. Every time I chat with you, I just I'm just reminded of how big God is, how involved He is, how we're just a part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And we can get very wrapped up in our world and what's going on around us. And God's doing work in all these nations I can't even pronounce, doing all these kind of things. Angels are appearing on the mountains. Dogs are being healed in Greenland. And we can get a bit wrapped up. So I love chatting with you. It just broadens me. It lifts the burden and makes me know God's big.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Guys, round 2. That's the end of round 2. Are you still alive? Are you still coming? Are you still tuned in? Take a moment. We're going to go in for round 3, our last round together, as I'm going to ask Martyn a few more questions and maybe ask him to give some inspiration to us specifically here at Flow Church. So take a moment, subscribe, grab a drink. Thanks for watching.